So, Monday night, I check in with you because we are going to see the Spinal Tap movie on Wednesday, and you were at something called Sweat with Siete featuring Jon Gallagher. Can you please tell me what that was? Or
Well,
tell everybody what that was, and then tell me what it was like to do what you did.
it was not a concert featuring supporting act Jon Gallagher, but there was music. It was a body weight workout. Last year, they did a version of this with Brad Stuver and his wife, where they did yoga. And this year, they decided to do a body weight workout, which, for those unfamiliar, is significantly higher impact than yoga, which
Mhm.
is it is not that yoga is not a workout. It is a very different kind of workout, but a body weight workout, you're doing jumping, squatting, lunging, push-ups, yoga poses into push-ups, that
Mm.
sort of thing. And
Okay.
for focused circuits at a time. And it had been a while since I had done one of these. And
Mhm.
I told myself, I'm going to go hard. I'm going to wreck myself. I'm going to be very sore the next day. And yes, I did all of those things. I went harder on one of these than I had, which, even though I haven't been a gymnast since, I don't know, 25 years ago, this is very much the kind of workout that I was accustomed to. So getting in the groove of it, just accepting the suffering of it, is something that I got used to a long time ago. And it felt good.
Right.
It felt really good until it didn't. And when it didn't, I modified the exercises. I did as much as I could. I went up to my limit to get the most out of it that I could. And I'm really glad that I did it. And the added benefit of this, and the ticket price was only 25 bucks, benefiting the
Mhm.
4ATX Foundation, which John is
Yeah.
on the board of. But John was doing this workout with us a day after coming back from that Kansas City game.
Yeah. Yeah.
And himself was saying, I just want to be clear, I did not choose this workout or plan this workout. And so I'm going to make
Or time
generous.
this workout.
Well, he said, I'm going to make generous use of my role as the trainer to walk around and observe you guys doing this because I need to take it easy. So we had the workout. The workout was great. And they offered complimentary cold plunges if you wanted one. I was the first person to jump in. I had never done one of these properly. I have done like ice baths after a really heavy workout where you just
Mhm.
dump a bag of ice in a bathtub. But the guy organizing it, there's a thing about timing, Phil. You wait to tell the person who is saying, "Hey, this is my first time doing a cold plunge," exactly how cold he set the water, mistakenly assuming that it would be in direct sunlight. It was 43 degrees, which is colder than he intended to set it. So my first
Oops.
cold plunge experience was just a hair over 10 degrees above freezing. And he told me this as I was hitting about the minute 30 mark. And I went, okay, I'm getting out. But it does very much feel like you're dying. It is like your body does go into a form of shock, and it hurts the most in your extremities because that's the last place that your blood flow goes to. And so my fingers and my feet were starting to come back. And then he dropped that on me, and my brain went back into the fight or flight that it does right at the beginning of it, which is why they recommend that you get in really fast. It felt great. It was fantastic. It was a great way to cool down inflammation before it really set in. And then went inside, ate some really nice free Veracruz tacos and some agua fresca. The agua fresca provided by Austin AF, a literal AF agua fresca
Yeah.
company.
Got
And
that.
Siete had a bunch of swag they were giving away. And I was focused on literally nothing but the tacos because, Phil, the other questionable decision that I made is I had not eaten anything in hours before this. So on the other side of an intensive body weight workout, I was I was ready to hunt and gather if I had to satiate my hunger. So yeah, I had my fill. I recruited, I think, a couple of new listeners. Hello to both of you. I forget
Hi.
your names. One of you is a Spurs fan. My condolences and
Mm.
congratulations, I guess, based on recent hardware.
Mm.
And then yeah, I grabbed the last swag that they had left, including the Siete squeaky toy intended for dogs that I think is just as good for cats, and made my merry way home so that I could be on a different podcast and talk about 2000's U571 starring Matthew McConaughey. It's
All right.
all podcasting all the way down.
Emergency podcast. Verde did a thing, so we gotta talk about it. Emergency podcast. It's an emergency. Emergency podcast. Shut up, hell yeah, shut up, hell yeah, shut up. Emergency podcast. It's an emergency.
Hey, a hearty hello to you all, and welcome to Emergency Podcast, the Austin FC podcast, where we talk about all the Austin FC emergencies. And Moisés, your emergency at 43 degrees, cold plunge. How much more cold can this be? The answer is none. None more cold.
None more cold. None more cold if you want me to survive. This Wednesday, we saw the Spinal Tap sequel, with the exception of part of the scenes over the credits, which were interrupted for a Q&A, which was supposed to be before the movie, but
yeah,
I don't know. So technically, we both have to go see it again, but we did see most of the movie. But prior to that, the day before, we recorded, and then Wednesday morning dropped our first emergency tangent, where we talk about something that has nothing to do with soccer, but is tangentially related to what we say, as we said on that recording. If you haven't listened to it, we're thinking about doing some more of those and figuring out the shape of what we want to do with it, because people have asked, hey, can I directly support the podcast? I already support the newsletter, but is there some way that I can further support you guys? And so we want to figure out what the shape of that is and make it as laid back and easy, make sure that we're delivering something for y'all that we feel right to asking people for money for.
Yeah.
So listen to that.
Sure. And then just touch on that briefly. If you saw the original Spinal Tap and you loved it, you will have a nice little burst of nostalgia here and there with this particular movie. If you have not seen the first Spinal Tap and you're just trying to get into the Spinal Tap lore with this one, don't do that. Go see the original first.
Do it in order. Do it the right way.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So we got an SKC win.
Yeah, we did.
With bunch of players out on international duty. 2-1 win. It was nice. We had a CJ Fodry unexpectedly with the winning goal on that. What were your takeaways from that game? We'll touch on that briefly, and then I want to get into what I think is a kind of interesting narrative that's percolating that Nikos Devis talked about on Wednesday during the weekly press conference. Unusually on Wednesday rather than on Thursday like they usually do, because the match is Saturday in Frisco, so they could have theoretically... I don't know if they're spending Friday night in Frisco. I don't know. But it was weird. It was weird timing.
Yeah, Friday night in the Dallas Burbs. It wasn't one of my favorite things when I lived in the Dallas Burbs. So yeah, let's talk SKC for a minute. As somebody who has paid so much attention to the play of Austin's second team, CJ Fodry is one of the most visible standouts of that group. He's one of the last men standing who won that championship with them in 2023. Which, despite what anybody, myself included, might think about MLS Next Pro as a league, is an achievement that deserves some recognition. And people within the Austin fan base love him because they have seen so much of him play. We've seen him get scant first team minutes, resulting in some stats that are hilariously lopsided if you just look at them on their own without any context. To me, the perfect grace note on the way that match ended up going was for that winning goal to be entirely thanks to him. And the would-be goal of his that just narrowly missed before it reminded me of one of his signature goals from the second team. Seeing that kind of progression with the player, that sort of thing. I've touched on this before in talking about Sebastian Berhalter and talking to him during All-Star. There's a really unique opportunity to see these crucial moments of player development that you don't see in the other leagues because everybody has to be a Lamine Yamal or an Erling Haaland, or people don't pay attention to them as much. But that's one of the things that I like so much about MLS is these players are playing on professional contracts, but they're not completely fully formed. And CJ Fodry is somebody that I would like to think years from now we look at as a big MLS success story, and this is where it really started to take shape. This is where he really started to earn deserving the first team start, which, as we've talked about before, the impression that we've gotten since the new regime has come in at Austin is that their perspective on the second team, as Roto said in many a press conference now, is that you should be a player who comes in there who proves that you are too good for that Division III league. And CJ is making that case known, and couldn't be happier for him. Let's see if he can keep that up. That's what he has to do now.
And that's also the kind of performance that you want out of a generation Adidas players.
Uh-huh.
Those players are earmarked as players that can theoretically succeed in the league, that have a better chance of doing that than most of the people that come out of the super draft. So yeah, it was good to see. Of course, Owen Wolf had another incredible game. Of course,
Yeah.
he got the assist on that winning goal in the corner kick. His goal was,
His goal.
again,
Oh
he
man.
just it was so nice. It continues to amaze me week after week, like how good he is. And again, I think we are going to come to this point. Maybe it's at the end of the season, maybe it's in the summer window. It's a big decision. It's, do you move him on to Europe? Does he want to develop there for a lot of GAM, which is something that Austin really hasn't ever done with a player to that
Yeah.
degree? Or do you build the team around him? Do you see him as a sort of foundational piece, and do you see his trajectory going up and up and up? I think it's going to be a really interesting thing to look at as we proceed. It's it's two roads diverged in a wood, right? It's really hard to know like what the correct path is for that. Because on one hand, what if you hang on to him and God forbid he, blows out a knee or something like that? Or what happens if he suddenly hits a skid in his development? But Sebastian Berhalter, like you talked about, he had a really bad 2021 here in Austin, and
Mm-hmm.
then he went to Vancouver and developed. There's a really great Charlie Boehm article that came out this week on MLS where he's talking about how he had this kind of realization that he was the worst player on the field when he was playing for Austin that year, and was on the cusp of quitting, and then really developed and got into Vancouver and got into a really good situation and developed into the player that he is. Owen's on this really good trajectory right now, and we're seeing him develop in real time in this really impressive way. But what's the best path for him and for the club? That's going to be a really interesting, I think, storyline to watch as we proceed beyond this season and into next season.
What I really like about those two players in particular is that they really, to me, have fully broken free of all the nepotism conversations. The nepotism
Sure.
conversations
Yeah.
are easy, lazy criticism, I think misplaced criticism of both of
Mhm.
them, where I disliked that on the call, in English, we heard Owen Wolf scoring goals like his dad. That is nothing like the way that Josh Wolf scored goals. Scoring
Mhm.
goal like from the like putting a point on the board standpoint, sure, but Owen Wolf is nothing like what Josh Wolf was as a player. And I think
Mhm.
it's an unfortunate way to frame a player who deserves a bit better recognition of what he is doing well. And then you look at Sebastian Berhalter, and I like that he recognized what he recognized when he was at Austin. Had he bounced like a lead balloon at Vancouver, I think it is fair to say that considering who his uncle is, considering who his dad is, considering on the way that U.S. soccer is built, he probably would have gotten another fair chance that another player in MLS may not have
Mhm.
if he hadn't shown up the way that he didn't need that. It is totally valid to note that in the what if world of potential outcomes of things, he probably would have gotten some additional sort of fair shake. Probably. I think that's fair to say. But to say
Mhm.
that in any way, the way that he has rebuilt himself as a player while at Vancouver is because of his dad, well, he grew up as dad's son, and there's nothing he can do about that.
Right.
And I don't think that it is fair to say that this guy, who is an adult, a man of his own making, that he is calling his dad for tips every day or asking his dad to like tell the other players to take it easy on him or some BS like that. Both of these players, that's what I love about the narrative of this season for both of them, is that to me, in the most important ways, they have broken out of anybody reasonable leveling those kinds of nepotism charges against both of them.
Yeah. But at the same time, they certainly benefit from the soccer knowledge that they
Oh
grew up
yeah,
with as well.
that's the thing is, if you have a budding podcaster slash journalist growing up in your house, there
Right.
is some benefit that she gets from being child of Phil
Sure.
West. He definitely had the benefit of being the child of a graduate school professor in linguistics, where
Mhm.
taking foreign languages, not just the one that I already spoke fluently, I did have an unfair advantage to kids who didn't have that growing up. But also,
Right. Right.
I didn't have the dad who was the coach of the baseball team or the coach of the soccer team who made sure that I played, or the coach of the basketball team. I didn't get the minutes that the kid of the guy who was coaching, or of his various assistant coaches who all went to the same church and that sort of thing. I've been on the receiving end of that kind of thing. I've seen it up close. I hate it. But at a certain point, who their dad is not affecting how they are showing up on the field week to week. That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah. So do we have anything more to say about the SKC win other than it was good and we're glad it happened and we're glad that they weathered the international break the way they did?
Here's what I would say that leads, I think, directly into what you're going to bring up next is that I think that it was an important turning of the conversation about what the back half of the season looks like for Austin. I feel like that performance tamped down some of the things that a lot of us have been reflexively used to seeing, especially based on the last couple of years. Granted, we have a small sample size of 4 full seasons before this one, but 23 and 24 did a number on us. I think there is something about that SKC result and the San Jose result before it that goes in nicely. It's something you brought up in the newsletter.
Yeah. So Nico talked about in the Wednesday press conference, pointed out that they have 21 points in the last 11 matches, which is a 6-win, 2-loss, 3-draw record. And that's a pretty good run, even though that's absorbing that weird Houston draw, Dallas draw, Montreal loss hiccup that we had in there. It's still close to 2 points a game, right? Just a shade under that. So that is counterpoint with the thing that we talked about a few weeks ago, that idea of the post-July swoon, right? So they had, from August on, tended to slump in their form compared to what they had done in the months before, and that tended to get them out of playoff position in, of course, the previous 2 years. 22, of course, they had such a good head start that they weathered that, and even though it wasn't a kind of terrific finish to the season, they still ended up second in the West. That's just how well that they'd done early on. But so far, post-July, and again, part of what we talked about when we talked about that particular article was, and something that I framed in there, it wasn't just to pile on necessarily, but it's like, okay, is this the year that they can finally reverse this trend of what happens after July? Because it was a trend. There were numbers. You could see it. Everybody knew it and experienced it anyway. But could this be the year that maybe they turn it around? And I don't know if it's something that like Nico can instill, or if it's a style of play thing, or if it's just that maybe part of it might be that just that the summer wasn't as relentless in this year as it was the previous years, although summer doesn't seem to be going away as I thought it was going to. But so far, August and September, in the first 5 matches, they are 2-1-2. So 2 wins, 1 loss, of course, that Montreal match, and then 2 draws, of course, the Houston and Dallas, and the 2 straight wins that they have. If they win against Dallas, they will have their first 3 match win streak since 2022, which is something I pointed out in that article that we put up here on Thursday. In 2024, they were 1-3-2 in their first 6 matches. In 2023, they were 0-4-2 in their first 6 matches in that August-September period. And even in 2022, they were 2-3-1. So even if they lose, they're still going to have the best record out of the gate from August 1st on this year than they've had in any of those previous 3 years. And if they do win, again, they do have that outside chance of finishing with the best record that any Austin team ever has. They're going to have to pretty much win out to do that. They can still have a draw in there, but they're going to have to win everything else in order to do that. And I think there's going to be some tough matches along the way, obviously, right? So looking at the match against Seattle, looking at the match against LAFC, it doesn't seem like it would be wise to bet on the team getting to 57 points or higher, but it could conceivably happen. And the start now is encouraging, that even though they did have that kind of rough little patch in there, they absorbed that in the midst of doing really well before that. And the 2 wins in a row are encouraging. So I'm just wondering what you're thinking about the form. And again, it's hard with the sample sizes. It's hard with being selective to try to figure out like where the trends are, because again, it is an MLS season, but this could be the start of something encouraging. This could be the start of something where they don't fade as badly after July 31st as they have in past years.
I mean, rolling back to the San Jose win, on the heels of that, I got a wild hair and wrote up this thing about what Austin's remaining opponents, whether it was 8 or
Yep.
9 of them, were looking at from there. And we've gotten a little bit more data since that went up that I would incorporate into me rolling through a piece of it, where the thing that they were looking at against Sporting Kansas City was not without as many guys as Austin was as a result of the international break. And Austin managed to make that win, which I don't think it's unfair to label it as impressive. I don't know that people's expectations were that they were going to go and definitely get those 3 points. It felt like a lot of the vibe in the chatter out there was hopefully they can keep it to a draw during the international break. And I think that the encouraging energy that you get from going to back, and now you're heading to a stadium where you've never won away.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And that team is dealing with its own stuff. When I wrote this article, Dallas was coming off of back-to-back draws, one of them against Austin.
Right.
And then they played St. Louis.
Yeah. We're going to get there.
I just want to touch on it. We'll get to that later, but what went into this article was a bit of, here's literally what's on paper, what they've had come together in terms of results. Here's what they have ahead of them. And we're getting actual real life results and data that is, to me, folding into the version of things that I was looking at there, which is more than the beatability of the opponents. To me, it was about the trials and tribulations that those opponents were going to have to face, where we'll leapfrog Dallas for the moment, but jumping ahead to Minnesota in the U.S. Open Cup semifinal middle of next week, Minnesota United are one of the top teams in the league, definite contenders for the Supporters Shield still, and they drew at home against Portland last week, and they're playing San Diego this week. They are playing San Diego, who shut down LAFC in Son Heung-min's first start.
Yep. And that game's in San Diego, too.
It's in San Diego. Let's say Minnesota comes off of a rough loss against San Diego. Let's say Minnesota comes off against a hard-fought draw or even a hard-fought narrow victory against San Diego. And I feel like in that matchup, at the moment, the way that things are right now, I favor San Diego.
Yeah.
I see that breaking San Diego's way. And then they get their heads back together to play a cup semifinal.
Yeah.
How are they going to manage their mentality? How are they going to manage an Austin that definitely have something to prove? I would say in the vein of, if not at the same exponential rate as LA Galaxy did in Leagues Cup, right? There is something that this Austin team wants to prove with that Open Cup. It's not anything about Minnesota's quality. It's not that they don't want it. It's that Austin wants it differently. And I think will be underestimated in important ways, in the same way that people underestimated their likelihood of victory against Sporting Kansas City. And then on the other side of that, Phil, let's go with the assumption that Austin is bringing an Open Cup final home. And they come home on the weekend to play the Seattle Sounders, who have no reason not to rotate against Austin, as they are still chasing the Shield themselves, as they want to keep guys healthy for the playoffs. Then we got RSL. Then we've got, in theory, Philadelphia Union or Nashville SC for U.S. Open Cup final before playing St. Louis LAFC and San Jose. St. Louis, who they are not making the playoffs. They are going to be people with nothing to lose, who are players that just want to continue to have sell-on value and that sort of thing, so that they either land somewhere good or a new coach takes a liking to them or something along those lines. And then LAFC is facing Austin at the end of their second 3 games in 7 days stretch. And I don't know what kind of shape San Jose is going to be in on decision day. I think a lot of people looked at that being away in San Jose as a major disadvantage to Austin. when we're looking at the arc of the season, to your various very valid points. The way that I'm seeing it is that it is not that Austin has an easy path or a simple path to a solid end of the season. It's that they have a lot of different paths to not falling off of the momentum that they have put together over the last couple weeks.
Right, right. So just before we move on to the Frisco match, are you encouraged then? What do you think they do in these? I don't know if we want to necessarily project game by game, but what's your confidence level on these next 6 matches then?
The thing that people could take ridiculously out of context, I think they could actually win every single one of these games.
Okay.
Mentality wise, I feel like they could. I don't have any doubt that they could show up and do this. What's key is something that Brad Stuber said in the midweek press availability, which is that they cannot be complacent. And it's good to hear that. And it's good to hear it from Brad. And if we're hearing it from Brad, to me, it's not a coach talking point. It is especially the ones who were here through 23 and 24 know what it's like to fall off hard. And whatever it took to get their mentality to where it is, talking to Jon Gallagher briefly, he said, things always get weird when we go to Frisco. We are not taking anything for granted. That is very encouraging. They cannot be overconfident. They cannot give away the tells that, oh man, they're disappointed that they missed that shot or they made this one little mistake. These guys have gotten past that getting hung up on mistakes thing, and they are keeping their heads about them in ways that I've been wanting to see from them all season. I don't know what it was that player meeting did, but to me, that must have been crucial because they showed up as a different team against San Jose.
Yeah. My feeling right now is that these last 6 games here feeling 3-1 and 2. So I think they're going to drop one along the way. Maybe the Seattle match, maybe that's like hangover from winning the Open Cup semifinal. I'm just going to go ahead and project that there. So, and then a couple of draws in there as well, right? So maybe that LAFC match is a draw. Maybe there's one other kind of fluky draw in there, but that would get them on 52 points. That's not going to get them quite to the 2022 threshold. But if you were to tell people, apropos of not even knowing what the final was going to hold, but it's like, oh yeah, this team's going to end up on 52 points and they're going to be hosting a US Open Cup final, you would have taken that at the start of the season.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Knowing that Austin was in the Open Cup chase, one of the things that I said at the beginning of the season to anybody who would listen, I probably said it on the podcast, was if Austin makes a meaningful US Open Cup run, that to me is something that gets through I don't care what club it is. I don't care how talented the players are. When you have a turnover in manager and you are still seeing the last of not just the individual lousy contracts from the previous regime finding their way out the door, but the lasting effects of the other stuff that plays into the fixed budget league that we all love and adore and watch every week and marvel at the mysteries of. This is still a team in transition from one overall philosophy to another. Just because the coach is here and just because a bunch of very high-priced players just got here, the thing about MLS is that it takes patience. It is not something you just drop into like the Premier League and go, oh, just add water, perfect league. You have to get used to its weird foibles and all of the strange rough edges that are part of it.
By the way, the highest paid player that we brought in the offseason blew out his knee halfway through the season.
Yeah. That's there's a lot of that kind of context that I think gets lost in a country that, as much as I in particular don't like how much the NFL and like blowout wins and Dallas Cowboys style dynasties and that sort of thing rule the day, it's a sport with ties, and people in the United States don't like ties.
Right.
And sure, there are lots of people who follow the club and follow MLS who know soccer and have known it for ages and are well accustomed to it. There have been those 2 rough years leading into this one. And I think that as much as maybe the club wants to hear that people will be patient with them, I think that the fans want it understood why they have been impatient and why the last couple years have been particularly rough. And I want to believe that a bunch of the kind of chiness that we're hydrocortisoning that away in the next couple of weeks. A decisive US Open Cup semifinal win, that'll do a lot. First time in the club's history win away at FC Dallas. I mentioned it in the locker room to Jon Gallagher. You guys have never beaten San Jose by 2 points. You guys notched something in club history tonight. That is important. When we're talking about turning around things, we looked at the all-time record against San Jose. Let's talk about probabilities. That game against San Jose, probability-wise, not expected to go the way that it did in terms of the final result. And at the end of the day, the 3 points matter. The goal differential matters. Things that could have been more perfect. That's the beauty of the beautiful game, is it can always have been more perfect. But once that final whistle blows, that's what you have. To me, that's really the beauty. I cannot stop going back to the San Jose game. And I feel like I'm making a solid bet as somebody who hates gambling that it will end up being a very definitive inflection point for the season. I think you're dead on about we'll see a couple draws, we might see a loss. Yeah. But I feel like this is a team that is especially proud of going a bunch of games without losing. So if somebody beats them, they really have to want it. And we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, they could potentially run the table. They have been playing well. Law of averages says that it probably will not happen. But if they do get to that 52-point threshold to finish the season, they would be at 1.52 points a game or 1.53 points a game. So over a point and a half a game. You remember Josh Wolf career over the 4 years, including the really good season, was around like what the Josh Wolf line was like around what, like the Thomas Rongen line was like around what, like a 1.24, I think was
something like that.
Yeah. So this is a good deal better. And again, in MLS with the playoff structure the way it is, the difference between a 1.5 PPG performance and a 1.25 PPG performance is typically the difference between playoffs and not playoffs, which is, of course, the first sort of threshold that you want to hit as an MLS team.
To me,
it's not hard to make the playoffs, but you still should do that every year. Or if you're finishing in the bottom 5, bottom 6 of your conference, that's not good.
They're looking at it's 18 potential points left until math disagrees with them. That's the kind of mentality that to me is why I think, sure, they could. Is it likely? Absolutely not. But that's also to me the kind of confidence that makes the win-loss draw record that you predicted something that I think they can very comfortably believe is possible.
Yeah. But if they did that, their second half of the season, if they win the rest of their games out, the second half of their season is a 12-2-3 record, which is pretty startling. It's not likely, but the way they have been playing the last couple of games, it is conceivable. Again, I don't know how they do against Sun and LAFC. I don't know how they do
Sun's going to be on international
the Sounders.
Duty.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
because so will Azuni.
So will Azuni, but also so will Bouanga, whose Gabon is chasing the World Cup.
Right.
That's That's again,
that game gets quirky. Yeah,
that's where it gets weird. You may see the stars of LAFC 2 playing against Austin in Austin. I'm telling you, anticipate it now.
Right. Okay. The CJ Fodery game again. All right.
Exactly.
Let's talk about Frisco. So, like we mentioned, never won there in their history, which is a pretty startling statistic. And then, of course, this is going to be for second place in Copa Tejas. Houston has locked that up. First year that Houston has won the Copa Tejas in its 5 years of existence. And you were mentioning that St. Louis game. So let me throw a number at you.
Hit me.
43.
Okay.
That is the number of shots that St. Louis took during that match. Let me give you another number. 1. That is the number of goals that St. Louis scored in that game, tying Dallas 1-1. And let me give you one more number. That number is 12. That is the number of saves that Jacob Jackson had. Who is Jacob Jackson? He is Dallas's third string goalkeeper. Martin Pass has been out with injury. Michael Colodi started that game. Michael Colodi got a 16th minute red card for a dogso foul on a St. Louis player. And then Jackson had to replace him, went in cold, had to start saving all kinds of shots. Really weird game, really, truly amazing MLS spectacle. And Dallas comes out with a 1-1 draw, their third straight draw. Paz is still injured. Colodi, of course, is going to be on red card suspension. So we are going to see Jacob Jackson again. So was this a once in a lifetime kind of performance for this guy? Was this just like out of nowhere? This is your moment to shine. This was your Faustian bargain. You're going to have this one really good game and then, like everything's going to fall apart from there on in? Or are we witnessing the birth of a new goalkeeping star in MLS?
I mean, what you just said may be the birth of a great goalkeeping star. Something that can't be denied is the unique kind of adrenaline having to come on in the 16th minute of a game you did not expect to play any minutes in a season you did not expect to play any competitive minutes in. That is a very special kind of drug that you can only get from a very special kind of seller on the dark web. Or you get it from experiencing it in your real life. I don't think that admittedly, stellar performance coming in clutch against St. Louis should necessarily guide people to think that he is Brad Stuver too.
It is coming in clutch against St. Louis.
It is coming in clutch against St. Louis, who at the time that I wrote that, Austin's remaining opponents thing, at that point, if St. Louis had won every remaining match they had, they would have maxed out at 39 points.
Yeah.
And
St. Louis can be eliminated this weekend, actually.
Yeah, St. Louis can be eliminated this weekend. They played against a do or die team that was up a man on them. But that honestly, just based on the way that Dallas has played this season, Dallas should have been able to score another goal. Dallas, even down a man, even using a reserve goalkeeper, I stand by the fact that I watched that replay, that Dallas could not keep it together, having not lost a field player, but losing a goalkeeper.
Right.
That they could not beat St. Louis, even though they were in St. Louis, which is not as much of an impenetrable fortress as some would have you believe. I don't know about that.
You know how many shots Dallas had in that game?
How many? What was that number again, Phil?
4.
4.
43-4 shots, and the game ended 1-1.
And look, I'm on the record as the guy who, it's dangerous to agree with Josh Wolf about certain things. Okay. But I would say it would be, why didn't Austin have more shots? Well, if they didn't have good shots, why take a shot and waste a possession? If you could try to keep moving it around, get into a good goal scoring position, and actually make something of that chance. What's better than a chance, Phil? A chance that it actually has a snowball's chance in hell of actually getting into the goal.
We did see some games in that era, though, where there were not that many chances.
We did. We sure did.
Good or otherwise.
But even with that kind of proviso, like 4 shots against, what was the number again, Phil?
Yeah.
What was that number?
Yeah, 43.
43? 43.
Yeah. Just shortly after this goes up on Saturday morning, I have some insights from Drew Epperly with the Big D Soccer. We did some exchange stuff. He put my stuff up today. I'm going to get his up tomorrow. He's still... Again, I talked to him a few weeks ago, the last time these teams played, and he still harbored this hope, this kind of scenario that Dallas would make the playoffs. He's still harboring that, but is recognizing that draws rather than wins at this stage of the season is not particularly helpful to the endeavor. Obviously, Peter Musa is still there. He is having a great season, but they're going to need more than just one player to produce, I think, to help themselves on Saturday. And again, the whole notion of Austin never having won in Toyota Stadium, I think that will be significant to the Austin players. I think that will be something that they will want to course correct on.
Yeah, I completely agree. I feel like this back quarter of the season is about proving assumptions about them wrong. I don't often agree with Taylor Twellman, but a couple of the things that he said on the broadcast during Sunday Night Soccer, I think were very apt. What I see in this Austin squad is that they have things to prove. The momentum is in their favor and their heads are in the right place. And with the exception of the season-ending injury to Brandon Vasquez, it feels like they are heading toward the playoffs less hurt and in a better headspace than other teams that have really burned the candle at both ends. LAFC being a big one. They have more matches to play in these remaining weeks than anybody else in the Western Conference. FC Dallas are fighting the uphill fight that Austin did over the last 2 seasons. And that is not an enviable position to be in. An opponent with something to prove like Austin does.
One thing to note about Dallas, and Brad Stuver had mentioned this, and then Drew mentioned this in his write-up too, they do play with a back five. They play in a
Uh-huh.
5-3-2. So it is a little weird. It's not a look that necessarily Austin's seen a lot of this year. They haven't not seen it ever, but it is a little unusual just with the way that they play with those wing backs. And Brad Stuber was talking about these kind of expectations that in the last 20 minutes, if it's close, that they're going to bring a bunch of guys in and they're going to try to force the issue. It sounds like they are prepared to make a lot of good defensive stands. And again, just to not only deal with the complications wingbacks bring throughout the game, but also what kind of desperation that a team in the last 20 minutes of a match that they absolutely have to win to keep their playoff hopes alive will do, right? Because again, if Dallas draws or loses this, I think that they are probably in really bad shape. I don't think
Yeah.
that they will. I see them more likely as a 10th or 11th place team right now. I don't see them necessarily being able to lift up above the playoff line, but as long as you have Colorado, as long as you have San Jose in those 8th and 9th spots, certainly those things can happen, right? Certainly you can have a little bit of shifting around that if you get hot and you get a couple of wins under your belt in those last matches. If it is a draw, Dallas, I think, will still get second place in Copa Tejas, which will be completely immaterial and will not matter to either
Yeah.
team, I don't think necessarily. The important thing is that, yeah, again, wins are vital at this point in the season. I think Dallas probably is a little more desperate for the win than Austin, but Austin also knows what that win will do to help solidify their playoff chances. And then also it's an opportunity to have those bragging rights over Dallas in the head to head. And then also, obviously, it will probably doom Dallas to a playoffless 2025. And
Mm-hmm.
certainly that is something that I think Austin fans would appreciate seeing, the ones that are going up. And I know that there are a number that are going up.
The mentality thing that you point to there is the thing to look at, where I think there is a bit of a superiority complex thing that Dallas has had the entire life of Austin as a club.
Right.
Not just their fans. I think the organization does have a particular way of thinking about Austin, where last season there were literal like nanny boo boo things that they were doing to taunt Austin players when Austin played in Frisco.
Yeah.
And that kind of childish schoolyard stuff, the dual pressures are, if they don't show up and make the win happen, as you said, they all are very cognizant of what that does to their playoff chances.
Mhm.
On top of that, their guy between the sticks is going to have Stephen Cleveland in the Open Cup level pressure
Mhm.
that we saw
Yeah.
crack him. No offense to him, not that I think negatively of him, but look, that's the thing that we saw on the field. I think that it is very different not going into it with the hot adrenaline ready. And I think the third prong to that is they just cannot allow themselves to let Austin win in their house for the first time. And
Yeah.
I think that all three of those things is a recipe for their own disaster. Playing a back five as successfully as they generally have, being what it is, Dallas is going to be thinking about a lot more things, and Austin is going to be focusing on winning.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. And the pressure, yeah, even though both teams, the winning is important in September, but it is a little bit more on Dallas. They are home. They do absolutely desperately need this win. And yeah, Jesus Ferreira is not on this team anymore either. I do honestly think that Austin's block against playing Dallas in Frisco has had a good deal to do with Jesus Ferreira's success. Of course, he'll be coming to Austin the next week with Seattle, but
Yeah.
that's another issue. Like Ferreira in Seattle, even though that is better team top to bottom, doesn't quite do the same sort of things to, I think, Austin and Austin fans as seeing Ferreira in those red, white, and blue uniforms and seeing him scoring perhaps late goals in Q2 Stadium and then holding up that jersey to the fans in the South End.
Yeah. It
Not to
doesn't.
bring back bad memories,
Well,
but
it doesn't matter that he's not there anymore. I expect the Austin fans to go incredibly hard, even though
oh sure.
capacity at the stadium is reduced and away fans are going to be reduced. But I expect it to be rocking on Saturday night. But if people aren't making the trip up to Frisco on Saturday night, Phil, guess what?
Yeah.
We've got somewhere
Yeah.
to send them. Our friends at Los Verdes are throwing together another watch party. This one's going to be at Central Machine Works, Kickoff, as we all know, 7:30. You can get there as early as 6:30. If you haven't been there before, it's all ages, dog friendly. They've got a big outdoor screen. You don't have to bring chairs. And when it comes to parking, it's downtown-ish. There's a small lot that's accessible off of 5th Street. If you don't get there particularly early, there's another lot in front over off of Cesar Chavez, and there's street parking all over the place. Show up hungry, show up thirsty. They got a full kitchen and bar. And I got to tell you, the Central Machine Works vibes, I've not been to one of them, but just the reputation of what the vibes have been at Central Machine Works watch parties have been off the charts. So if you're saving yourself the headache of driving 3.5 hours north, then Central Machine Works got you right here in the heart of Austin.
Yeah, it's a great spot. Not 8 minutes from my house, a little bit longer, but it is a great location. Yeah, like you said, it's East 5th. You know where Justine's is. It's right across the street from there. And yeah, the Bob Verde event was there. Eric Goodman and I got to talk to Jimmy and Juan a couple months ago, right before All-Star, and that was a lot of fun. That was good vibes. Not a huge turnout, but folks came out, I think, had a really good time as well. So yeah, no, it should be good. Get yourself out there if you want to gather with the people. I got to go out to the ABW Sprinkle Valley one last week, which was good. Except the pizza truck, they had a little sign that said, "Be right back." And we ordered pizza for my daughter online, and then the window closed and they mysteriously disappeared. Still a good time. The tacos were good though. Taco cardio was good. Yeah. So Central Machine Works, they do have pizza. They are not going to close their pizza window. You will be able to experience their pizza window, which will be open because it is their bar, and they do have I think a table where you can order as well. Yeah. If you want pizza, you'll be able to get pizza there for sure.
What do we got left for this week, Phil? Speaking of fighting for playoff spots, the second team's playing at 9:00 at Starfire against Tacoma Defiance. And
so by the time you're listening to this, it will have happened.
It'll have happened. And it is a very playoff deciding kind of thing where, in the way that Frisco really has to beat Austin, Austin's second team really needs to show up big against Tacoma because they have few games left to notch their way into the playoffs. We'll see who's on that roster. We'll see who ended up surreptitiously traveling with the first team and who are staying the night in the outlying Dallas suburbs tonight. But speaking of playoffs, Phil, what else do we have to look forward to? Have we analyzed everything to death?
One thing that I am starting to toy with is I'm beginning to look at the penalty numbers, because I've noticed that some teams have a lot more penalties than Austin have. And I'm trying to figure out which teams in the league are kind of more penalty reliant than others. Austin has taken 2 penalties this season.
2. And how many games left, Phil?
6. Okay. So that's a penalty every 14 games.
Okay.
Doesn't seem like a lot, right?
So PPG, points per game, PKPG, penalty kick per game. I think that, look, I love stats. I talk about it all the time, how much I love stats. That's a stat. That's a stat I'm interested in as a stats hound. That's my favorite kind of stat is, so how does this team have all of these PKs, and what are they doing up at the top of the leaderboard?
I think, the teams with the most right now have 11, I want to say, which is pretty astounding.
And actually, now I'm thinking it should be 2 stats, Phil. PKFPG and PKAPG.
Austin has only made one of their 2 attempts this season.
Hey, it's a 50% success rate, man.
Colorado is 7 for 11. Nashville's 8 for 11. That's really pretty remarkable. The one that Vasquez made was the one against San Jose. So it's counting everything including. So they've only had one in the regular season, and that was the one against the Galaxy in April that he missed. And they don't have any other penalties this season. So maybe we need to rectify that. Maybe we need to talk to the writers' room. So we got one more thing that we want to touch on. It might be a little premature since we are heading to, this is a playoff projection thing, and I don't know if we're going to curse ourselves by talking about the playoffs. And I've got Emmy here. I've got a daughter helping us out with this one. Hi.
Hello.
All right. So I'm going to put this question to both of you. So which first round matchup do you want most and least? So we'll start with most, and let me run down the teams right now. San Diego's in first. Minnesota's in second, but they're third in points per game. Vancouver is third and second in points per game. And if the season were to end today, number 3 Vancouver would be playing number 6 Austin in that best of 3 series. And then Seattle is number 4 and LAFC is number 5, but also LAFC has some games in hand, so certainly they could move up, but they've also got like a whole buttload of schedule congestion too, so that could also wear on them at the same time. So, Moisés, I'll put this to you first, and then we'll get Emmy in here because I think I know what Emmy's answer is going to be. Who would you rather see? Who do you want to see most out of those 5 teams in a 3-game series?
This is
And
a
you can use any
difficult
kind
one.
of criteria that you want.
It's a difficult one that I would want to see most. This may sound like a curse to some people. I think I want LAFC most because
Why is that?
to me, the arc of the season, the way that it's going and the way that I think it'll continue to go is about defying previous expectations. Seeing LAFC as some towering giant, I think they are very toppleable, even with Son Heung-min, even with Denny Bouanga. I think that Austin bidding Steve Cherundolo a fond farewell for his MLS days by knocking his team out of the playoffs in a best-of-3 series, that to me, and hosting 2 of the 3, that's the other part of it, is that's the proviso, is Austin is above LAFC in the situation.
Okay. You think okay.
Austin ends up leapfrogging LAFC because of the difficulty of their remaining schedule, and end up hosting 2/3 of it.
So somebody's crashing hard because you're thinking Austin 4 and LAFC 5.
Yes,
Unless Austin gets to 3rd,
well, you said
and
what
LAFC gets down to 6th. Which
Phil, you wanted to know what I wanted for Christmas.
I'm just trying to figure out. Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out
what I wanted for
where
Christmas.
to get it.
That's
Is
what
it
I
on
want.
Amazon? Is it?
That's that. Hey, look, if it's available with Prime shipping, that's what I want for Christmas. Is I want something that fun, because that means they're coming into the playoffs on a head of steam. Because to be in 4th over LAFC in 5th, that means these last games go really well for them. That narrative to me, that's really attractive.
Okay. Emmy, who do you want out of the 5? So Seattle, Minnesota, Vancouver, LAFC, or San Diego?
Here's my list from most to least.
Well, I just need most.
Okay.
Okay, Vancouver.
Okay, Vancouver most. Why?
Just good team.
Yeah, they're a good team. They're fun. I totally understand that rationale. We have the whole Sebastian Berhalter narrative, which I think would be fun.
Yeah.
I'm actually a little afraid of Vancouver. I mean, Vancouver did beat Austin 5-1. There was a time earlier in the season, things change, right? So, but there's still that kind of looming over. So yeah, that's an interesting answer. I'm going to say, and this might be a different kind of cursing us. I'm going to say Minnesota. Because I think Minnesota is the most beatable of the 5 teams that are there.
Nice.
I think that Austin matches up best with Minnesota out of those 5 teams. And I just have a feeling that in a 3-game series, Austin could sneak away with an opening win at Minnesota and then be able to round it out at home. I just have a weird feeling. And again, yeah, I still think Austin's going to be 5th or 6th, but again,
I think that's
I'm tempted fate.
Yeah, that's a cool tempting of fate. All right.
Okay. What about least?
Least, I think it's Vancouver, because I want somebody else. I want somebody else to have to run into them first. See them later in the playoffs, not in the first round. Right. Not in the first round. If I had a for me it's and that requires some really particular things to break a certain way. The one that I was kind of like 50-50 on was San Diego, where we saw Nico outcoach the coach earlier in the season, but we have seen San Diego have a really killer season. And do we want to see San Diego pull off some history-making playoff run in their debutante season? I don't know if we want to be the tip of the spear against that.
But you look at expansion, St. Louis, not to say that St. Louis is necessarily the same. 2023 St. Louis is going to be the same as 2025 San Diego, but you saw St. Louis get to first in the West in part because they had a really good start of the season, and then they lost to SKC after SKC made it through the play-in match. So playoffs are different than the regular season, and Varis has been a good coach and they've been a good team, but I don't know necessarily if that's going to translate to success. I think even if San Diego does finish number 1, and that match against Minnesota this weekend is going to be really interesting. I still think that San Diego could be had, especially if it's number 1 San Diego against number 4 Seattle. In the second round, Seattle could probably take them. Who do you want to see least out of the 5?
Minnesota.
Minnesota, why?
They're just like not a team I like.
Okay.
Okay.
That's fair. By that point, we will have seen them twice in the regular season. We'll have seen them in the US Open Cup semifinal. Do we really need to see this team another 3 times, 2 to 3 times? Yeah. Like, I mean, are we gonna get Minnesota fatigue, right?
Yeah.
So that is a thing to be concerned about. You had a most to least order. What are the 3 in the middle? So you got San Diego, LA, and Seattle left.
So I like Vancouver because
Yeah.
the Jessica team in general.
Mhm.
I like San Diego because it was an awesome time when we went there.
Oh yeah, you had a good vacation there.
Mhm.
I had to stay home with
Mhm.
COVID.
Yeah.
So, but
Lucky you.
I went there another time. Yeah, but it's a good city. Yeah.
And I thought you said Austin, but it was LA.
LA and Seattle.
LA's still pretty cool. In Seattle, you're just from Seattle.
Yeah.
You're a dad.
I actually,
You're not from Seattle. You grew up there.
yeah, I'm from there. I'll say.
You're not from there.
Well, I wasn't born there, but I grew up there. So
from California.
yeah, I'm effectively from Seattle. Yeah, I have both Seattle and LA ties.
You're getting
so
your biography checked by your daughter there.
I know. So I'm gonna say actually I feel least confident about Seattle, actually, just because of what they do in the playoffs,
Yeah.
what they did in Leagues Cup,
Yeah.
the way that they're built. Jesus Ferreira getting to do things to Austin in the playoffs, I'm not particularly excited about.
Yeah.
He might remember the last time that his team faced Austin in the playoffs and how that went, and might have some feelings about that.
At the same time, what a great opportunity to prove that wrong. That's the thing, is if they thematically are locking into defying expectations and breaking trends that have been there for 4 years, what a great opportunity to break the Ferreira curse.
Mm-hmm. All right. Any last thoughts you got on me?
Yes.
What's that?
So I don't know how it's possible that San Diego just started this year as a soccer team,
Mm-hmm.
and they're already beating teams that are older than me.
That's a mystery. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's a really good observation. Like San Diego has just come out of nowhere and they have done really well in their first year. And like we said, St. Louis did that too in their first year, but they then suddenly had some skids after that. No, it's been a really good expansion season for them. That happens occasionally, but you're right. Yeah, it doesn't happen very often. So certainly didn't happen with Austin.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks, Sammy. Thanks for your
Bye-bye.
contributions.
Bye.
See you, Mom.
All right. That was Emmy.
There we go.
Bringing knowledge.
Another report from the Whitecap Cougar desk.
Right, exactly. Yeah, Vancouver just personally would be fun. I don't want to see Vancouver be the team that bounces Austin, though.
No.
But if Austin does get knocked out of the playoffs, then I'm immediately shifting allegiances to Vancouver for as long as they're in it. That's just how I'm wired.
Hey, they've been playing interesting soccer all season. They're very worth watching. Of those 5 teams, the one that do not have any interest in watching is Neutrals LAFC. It's
Okay.
no offense against Sun. It's no offense against Bouanga. It's just, I don't see their playoff run going well. I just don't see it going well.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. If Colorado gets themselves into the playoffs, I don't see that going well either.
Same.
Last year went, given what they've done, I still feel like Colorado is going to crash out by the end.
Yeah.
I don't think they're even going to make the playoffs.
I think that's reasonable.
San Jose.
Bruce Arena crashing out of the playoffs in his first season back. I wouldn't hate
where
that.
they're going to land, that's likely, but if they don't even make it past the play-in game, I really want a chaotic play-in game that Austin's not involved in.
That would
that's
be
part
fun.
Of what's in my wish list too. Yeah,
that's the only reason I want San Jose in the play-in game, because I want to see them suffer.
A San Jose RSL would be particularly delicious.
That'd be rough. Oh yeah, no, I like that.
Yeah, because then you get the Arango returning to RSL and really high stakes matches. You have Diego Luna, you have Joseph Martinez. That could be fireworks. That could be some wildness for a game. All right. Anything else we got to hit before we get on out of here and start lighting the requisite candles and everything else for a first win in Frisco.
Everybody stay safe out there. It's a weird world out there, a weirder one than when we recorded a week ago. And have fun and enjoy life while you have it to live.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. We'll see you next week then. We will, of course, we'll be seeing if we're talking about a US Open Cup final or just putting a bow on a good US Open Cup run. And then we will, of course, be previewing the aforementioned Seattle Sounders and the aforementioned return of Jesus Ferreira to Q2 Stadium, something that we always appreciate and love.
This is the best thing I've heard in the history of the 8 years I've been on this planet.